Yes, sir, Adele.
First, you have to start with concepts.
Yep.
Second, you go to inter-concept differences and intra-concept
Differences, intra-concept differences. Okay.
Inter-concept differences. And then you develop a framework of the relationship between concepts.
Very good.
And then finally, you test it, as you said, you apply and so on. So some people call concepts a conglomeration of concepts.
Mm-hmm.
Some people you differentiate like market segmentation or something, or what is it called, product differentiation.
Mm-hmm.
It's inter and intra, and then many do not understand the role of models and frameworks. I've been told one time that basically just boxes and that don't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
It means that these are the relationship between the concepts. And if you have a relationship between 3, 4, that's constructs. So it's evolves. The theory is evolves, and so some people call the model a theory, some people call concepts a theory, construction. And then get your point about the application.
Okay, yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that. That was pretty darn good, actually, and you can tell he's been around for some time. That was pretty good, actually. So let me offer you a similar sort of definition, if you will. And I would sort of suggest that a theory is nothing but a set of propositions, which are sort of the relationships that you were talking about. These are a set of propositions that, and I use the word causally to really highlight that these are causal propositions that we talk about, even though we don't really use the word causal for a variety of reasons that you can read in Shelby's book. You know, the concept of causality is really, really very messy. But we are interested in causality. And so a theory is nothing but a set of propositions that causally link those concepts that Adele was talking about. They link up these concepts in causal connections, and typically these are based on arguments that rely on a set of assumptions. And these arguments are the verbiage that we use. So whenever you read, let's say, a JM piece, before there's a proposition or a hypothesis, you'll probably have a paragraph or 2 or 3 that go blah, 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 and therefore P1 or therefore H1, right? So all that blah, 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 blah is basically our arguments that sort of lead up to the hypothesis or the proposition. So that's what it is. And I've struggled with trying to figure out, what exactly is a theory, how do you define one? And if you read Shelby's book, there's a quote in his book that says, it's a set of systematically related statements, and on and on and on. But the problem with that is it's not clear what kind of statements are we talking about. So here's a little bit more elaboration of what a theory might be. All right, so why do we need these? Well, we need constructs because these constructs capture real-world phenomena. Theories are all about the real world, so we need these concepts, we need these constructs because they describe some of the things that are going on in the real world. And the purpose of a theory is, again, to explain some of these things that are going on in the real world that need to be explained or can be used to explain things that we are interested in explaining. So we need constructs, as Adele sort of pointed out. Propositions, these are things, those relationships, these are causal, and I insist these are causal, because if you don't have causal propositions or causal relationships, it's very hard to explain, predict, and control. So we are interested in causal propositions. So the second component of a theory is basically propositions. And then the last component of a theory, I would say, are arguments. And why do we need arguments? We need arguments because we want some confidence that our propositions are in fact causal propositions and will help us explain, predict, and control. So we got so basically a theory is nothing but a set of propositions that are really causal in nature, that help us explain, predict, control, or intervene, as Shelby pointed out, and we sort of use arguments to embellish support in our propositions. So that's kind of my working definition of a theory, if you want to keep that in mind for the next 15 minutes. Now, I want to get to what's the difference between theory application versus theory construction. So, theory application. what is it? And we do a ton of that. And I'm drawing that distinction to make that point. If you look at a heck of a lot of our literature, a heck of a lot of it is theory application. So what exactly is theory application? A theory application is the borrowing of a theory that somebody else has developed outside of marketing. And I'm exaggerating to make the point. Somebody in psychology or sociology or social psych or economics or wherever has developed some theory, and we use that theory, we apply it, and that's the sense in which I use the word apply. We apply that theory to substantive contexts that are of interest to us. So I might be interested in the substantive context of pricing, perhaps. So what do? I can go look at theories that might have come from psychology or economics or wherever, and I could use some of those theories to study how consumers might react to changes in pricing. So for example, one of the most well-known theories that we have, or well-known, is prospect theory. And one of the fundamental tenets of prospect theory is people react more to losses than they react to equivalent gains. So that's kind of the general point of it. So I could take that notion of prospect theory and I could apply it to a pricing context and make the prediction that consumers will react more to an increase in price than they will to an equivalent reduction in price, right? So an increase in price is a loss to them. A reduction in price, and Kent's here, so we can check whether he'll agree with that, but a reduction in price is a gain on the part of consumers, and we can make the prediction that $1 increase in price will elicit greater negative reaction from consumers than would $1 decrease in price, something like that. And that would be an interesting thing. That'd be a very useful thing. That'd be nice to have. No question about it. I want to be very, very clear. I'm not putting down theory application at all. It can be very, very useful, like this example cited. But that is not theory construction. I haven't constructed a new theory if I have applied some tenets from another theory to my substantive area of pricing or channels or whatever. That is theory application, useful as it might be. So that's point one. Well, what is theory construction then? Well, if I want to construct theory, I have to come up with either new constructs. Is there a laser here?
Yes, there's.
Yeah. So I have to come up with new constructs, and that'd be valuable because if I come up with new constructs, I am capturing some phenomenon in the real world. Or I've got to come up with new propositions. Remember, that's another part of the theory. That's the core of a theory that does the explaining, predicting, or controlling, or intervention, as the case may be. Or I've got to come up with new arguments that might provide greater support or less support for my propositions. That would be part of constructing new theory. So now let me go to this, this often cited phrase that we hear. Marketing is an applied discipline. I would conjecture, I would assert that saying marketing is an applied discipline naturally forces us, not forces us, but kind of, leans on us to do theory application. It kind of suggests that, well, we're just an applied discipline. I use the pejorative term, just an applied discipline. We simply, go out, seek out things that other people have done, and we kind of apply them. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, but what is wrong, not wrong, but what is wrong with that, what is problematic with that is it's very limiting. And I would urge us to think of ourselves as a basic applied discipline. First of all, the distinction between basic and applied sort of is a little bit fuzzy, but I'm urging us that we would be better off if we were to develop our own indigenous constructs or concepts, indigenous propositions, and indigenous arguments, and I call them organic for the lack of a better word. So so basically the idea is the theory application isn't a bad thing at all. We probably need to continue doing that, but the session is a critical review of what we've been doing. Well, I would make the proposition that we've been doing a heck of a lot of theory application and not enough of theory construction. That's kind of my thesis. And my biased view is that we'd be better off if we were to do more of theory construction, and I'll talk about that in a second here. And by the way, feel free to shoot arrows. I think we are supposed to be here, and you can throw your darts. There will be a time to come. All right, so constructing, if you buy my premise that we've done too much theory application and not enough theory construction, well, what does this entail? What does constructing organic theory entail? Well, first and foremost, we've got to come up with indigenous constructs, because as Adele pointed out, constructs are the building blocks of new theory. And Shelby called them entities, sort of the same thing. Constructs, concepts, entity, it's the same thing. So here's a quiz for some of the doctoral students here. What is a construct? Let me ask you a different question first. How many of us over here have heard the word, or used the word construct in our writing or discussions? Good. Most of it. Now, one of you who raised their hands, could you please define what exactly is a construct? And I don't want Adele to be responding to all questions here. So what is a construct? I'm going to start cold calling pretty soon. Yeah. Yes, sir.
You have to use words that kind of go together, constructs, concepts. But a construct is a concept. I'm not trying to be talking
That's
about
fine, that's fine, yeah.
that pulls together
Pulls together.
convergent phenomena.
Convergent phenomena.
That's, to me, that's what a construct is. You've got a bunch of phenomena that are convergent but diverse in some sense, and a construct pulls them together in a replicable sense. In other words, if you observe it here, you'll also observe it there.
Okay, we've got one brave soul out here venturing forth the definition of a construct. Thank you, I really appreciate that. We'll take one more and I'll share my take on it. You don't find these definitions very easily, and if you don't, no, Shelby, you can't, no. We'll get to you, sir. We'll get to you. One more. This table's been extremely quiet with their iPhones and iPads working nonstop. So what's a construct?